Have you ever felt stressed, anxious, or maybe even lost? I have, and you must have too. About half the adults and teens in India were suffering from increased levels of stress and anxiety. Let's go back in time, back to the late 1940s. Many of our grandparents were still children. They had to traverse through things that are even hard to imagine. Now, they tell stories about their hard lives and the hardships they had to face every day. Let's move on. Let's skip a few years and go to 1970s and 80s. They had their fair share of troubles. They had to deal with a lot of things that we didn't have to. They didn't have the privileges that we had. Remember your mom and dad telling how they had to go to school by crossing the Ganga and climbing Mount Everest? All these people faced a lot of problems in their lives, but very few had issues with their mental health. How many of you know what mental health means? Good, you may put your hands down. I'll define it for you. Mental health is a state of mental well-being that allows people to cope with the stresses of life, work well, learn well, and contribute to the community. It is an integral part of our well-being that underpins our individual and collective abilities to make decisions and transform the world. We've all been sick, haven't we? Yeah, the same thing can happen with mental health. Mental health conditions include mental disorders and mental states associated with stress and anxiety. Let me ask you a question. What images come to your mind when you hear mental illness? Maybe this, or even this. But let me tell you, a fairly normal-looking person might be suffering from mental illness. Many mental illnesses are not prominent outside. About 57 lakh cases of depression has been reported in India, and a bigger number goes unreported. The new generation has seen a drastic increase in mental health issues. Why do you think this is so? Factors affecting mental health. Now, today we'll be discussing a few major facts that are the causes of these mental health issues. First being constantly connected. Technology is great. It connects us with people far away and gives insight to their lives just by scrolling through our phones. But sometimes we see the so-called perfect individuals and feel inadequate. Sometimes we see people in devastating conditions and worry on their behalf. In a world where we ourselves have a lot of worries, this affects us drastically. Doing too much. It's no surprise that we live in a competitive community. Getting a job or getting into college is way harder than it used to be. As the population is increasing, opportunities for jobs and opportunities to get into college is getting slimmer and slimmer. This makes us work twice as hard. Moreover, having mandatory classes of dance, music, and sports after a long, exhausting day of school or work is just too much. Don't force anything on yourself. You may lose your passion. Relationships. Parents undergo a lot of parenting stress. Managing difficult jobs, doing the household chores, and raising children is sometimes very stressful. Some parents let this stress on their kids. Some parents will be tyrannical, unreasonable, and negative to their children. This in turn affects the children. In a relationship, one member can pass his or stress or anxiety to the other members. So always be aware of the relationships you get yourself into. Environmental changes. Pollution plays a major role in affecting our mental health. Air pollution degrades our physical health. Noise pollution devoids us of our peaceful mind and our time to think. All the towns and cities nowadays are filled with bright billboards and flashy posters and flyers. This acts as stimulants and makes our mind distracted. This, in turn, makes us feel stressed out. This is something we expected to be here, didn't we? I think the children agree. About 64% of all Indian students reported stress due to academics. This tells us something. There is a major flaw in our education system. Schools focus too much on grades and not acknowledge overall growth. Teachers who consciously or subconsciously hurt the students' feelings add to this prevailing condition. Back home, parents may do the same. By pressuring kids to their utmost limit and not being reasonable to them or listening to them, this makes the students feel stressed out. Now, let's go back to the question that I asked you earlier. What causes the increase in mental health issues in the new generation? Has your answer changed, or does it remain the same? Now that we know the problems, let's find something else. What? Remedies. First, unplug from your smartphones. Sitting on your phone all day and scrolling through it and worrying for others won't make a change. Use that time for something productive. Maybe a stress-relieving activity. But there are harmful stress-relieving activities. Some which gives pleasure or relief for a few moments, but leaves the person in shambles. Some such kind of harmful stress-relieving activities are drugs and alcohols, which is very much prominent in our community today. And some other, which we usually skip over, are overeating, spending too much screen time, and withdrawing from social activities. This all has ill effects on your mental health. Change in attitude and approach. This applies to teachers, parents, students, and children. Teachers and parents should be reasonable and understanding towards students and children. They are from a different era than you are. The methods that work for you might not work for them. You should be reasonable to your children. Parents, comparing your children to others, mocking them, or verbally stating that you give up on them are some of the worst things a child can hear. Don't do that. Each and every child is capable and potential of doing everything. A better education system. I told you before, our education system needs improvement. There's a lot of space for improvement. I'm not saying it's bad, it's good, but there need to be a lot of better education systems. The time we're living now is filled with troubles, worries, and our anxiety levels are through the roof. But we need to understand something. The new generation is different. Each and every one of them is a genius. They have an ingenious idea within them. It's our job to work together and bring these ideas out. When we work together with these kids, a transformational idea comes out. Don't focus on their weaknesses. Focus on their strength. The world so desperately needs a transformation, and may that transformation begin with you. Thank you.